welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And I missed yesterday, if you didn't notice, and that's because I had some visitors, and so my head was feeling terrible afterwards. So I decided I needed to take the day off from my made-up job, being the podcast. So welcome back. My siblings came to visit me, and of course my husband, being the overachiever that he is, catered us with some food and stuff. So it was really, really nice. And so I needed to rest. And yeah, there seems to be a lot going on this week, and actually the past few weeks. So I've been trying my best to stay away from the computer, and I have actually started feeling slightly better the day before yesterday. So I need to reset again. But the more good days I can have, or reset days, the better and better I will feel. So that's what it's like living with this vestibular disorder. And I just have to accept it and keep moving forward, keep putting one foot in front of the other. Um, and so today I wanted to talk about emotional balance. I wanted to talk about, after the initial transition into a life of recovery, what does the rest look like? So emotional balance is finding calmness amongst the chaos in whatever difficult times that you're facing. And I like to say that this podcast is not just for people in recovery from alcoholism or stroke or vestibular disorder. It's really hopefully reaches people that are just looking for a bit of a guide for living. That's what my program gives me. And when I say my program, I'm talking about, of course, my sobriety program, but it's more than that. It's the tools that I have customized from that program to fit into a life of recovery. And my emotional balance comes from this program and being able to go back to it and find this calmness. It's like home to me when things get to a place of like uncertainty, and which is like every day, right? In recovery, it's like every day. In sobriety, we call it life gets lifey, and it's in when you're dealing with chronic pain, life gets lifey is an understatement. And so having this foundation for living provides me like a calm place to go internally. It's like a familiar place that I can retreat to inside of me that grounds me when things get difficult. When I have this pain that nobody knows about. We were sitting around the dinner table yesterday, the lunch table, and we started talking about my disability, and I felt really loved because everybody did get quiet and was listening to me talk about what it's like. And sometimes that's all I need, is to just talk about what it's like. And as we were doing that, I said, things like, sitting around this table with you all, I feel terrible. I do. While I'm doing the podcast, I feel terrible. There's a reason why a lot of times that I'm not super perky when I'm doing the podcast episode, even though believe it or not, I'm a very perky person. But when I'm talking and trying to keep my focus, I tend to get a little more serious because it's hard. It's hard to do it, and it's real life. We're doing live action here. So it's important to show the difficulties, but also talk through how do you keep moving forward when you're living like this. Because of my program, my sobriety program tells me that I will intuitively know how to handle things that used to baffle me. And that is has become true for me. It started out when I was working and I would have an interaction with another human being that I was just like feeling a lot of animosity towards them. And working with my sponsor, working the steps, and working with my boss that I always reference, I was able to start understanding that handling things in my life does not necessarily mean that I have to do something about them. A lot of a lot of intuitively knowing how to handle things, a lot of that for me is stepping back out of things, and not trying to inject myself. I try to do more listening than I do injecting my opinion into conversations now. It's funny actually. My siblings were over and we were all talking, and everybody was sharing their opinion about something, and I just remained silent until I was asked for my opinion. And I was doing that on purpose because I didn't want to hear myself. I wanted to learn how they are handling a situation that affects all of us. And it certainly wasn't because I was hiding anything. I just wanted to stay silent. And I think it came across as if I didn't want to talk because that's not how I engaged in conversation over the 50 years of my life, but it's how I like to try to um, communicate with people now. I'm trying to listen more and stop trying to figure out what I'm going to say while the other person's talking, which is something that I've always done. And I've always made the excuse, oh, sorry, I'm an interrupter, as if it's something that's funny or acceptable. And it's not, it's rude. So intuitively knowing how to handle something, a lot of times these days for me is backing out and observing and growing from what other people are saying, learning from what other people are saying. Sometimes the part of things baffling me, it used to baffle me because I was trying to control things that I couldn't control. I was trying to control what other people's opinions were about things. I was trying to control how other people handled life. And all I can control is what's within my fingertips. And I'm learning that. I'm practicing that. I have learned how to not necessarily walk away from situations, but stand back and observe situations. And then on the other side of it, I'm learning how to be fearful of something and yet lean into it anyway. I thought it was so funny yesterday. my brother said to me, "Hi, brother, if you're listening." Um, I he said I was talking about my vestibular support groups that I've been picking up and leading, and he said something to me about how if I was nervous, and I was like, I mean, I specialize in support groups now. And I thought it was amazing that he was interested if I was nervous because as I observed him when we were working together, like he was doing so much that made me nervous. Like I wasn't even doing what he was doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would be so nervous if I was him right now. So it's interesting. I was talking to my husband about it last night about how we get nervous about things when we don't know anything about them, when we have no experience with them. And yet when we're the expert at something, um, we don't tend to get so nervous. So I think that's what that was yesterday. But I don't know, for some reason it made me feel good. It made me feel like I was brave. When somebody tells me like, I don't know how you're doing all of this, it makes me feel very brave. It's a real big compliment for me. Um, but all of this that I'm talking about is really generally called emotional balance. And I like to talk about, I feel like this whole podcast is about emotional balance. And the way that I've been able to get to it is by working the steps of my sobriety program. And I was reminded yesterday, somebody said, it's who I am when nobody's looking. Like, are my behaviors in line with the steps that I've worked in the program, or do they alter depending on if somebody's watching me or not? Am I living, breathing, and thinking according to my sobriety program? Um, I have, as I worked the steps, started to customize these tools for my way of life. And the biggest customization I've done is to adapt them to stroke and vestibular recovery. This morning, we were reading from a book called Living Sober. And we just started the book over. So once we get through the book, we read it every Wednesday. Once we get through the book, after I don't know, a couple months, I don't know how long it takes us to get through the book, several months, then we started over again. So today we were reading from the beginning of the book and it was talking about living sober. It was talking about what that book is about. And it referenced that drinking modifies thinking. And it took me this morning on this like path of what comes first, what comes next, and what does life look like? What is living? Like, how do I define living today as opposed to the way I defined it when I was drinking? And when I was drinking and thought about the idea of not being able to drink, back then it was very grim. The idea was very grim to me that life was not going to be any fun. But once the alcohol was taken away, then, so that's the stopping drinking. And then immediately after stopping drinking begins the phase of not drinking. After stopping drinking, then you go into the phase of not drinking. And that, as I saw it, was like white-knuckling life. That's what it appeared to be like because I was constantly obsessing about alcohol. I couldn't do anything without thinking about alcohol. And so living at that time was like was like holding on to a rope and it was slipping through my fingers. But I just kept holding on and I kept asking for help to hold on to the rope and working the steps. Like those, what I see is those that stop drinking and then they're working on this phase of not drinking and they're white knuckling life without working the steps, without asking for help. Um, they keep white knuckling life. So the definition of living never changes. Um, but with working the steps of my program, living became a gift, a daily gift. Like living became a celebration, a daily celebration. Like, what do I get to do today? And I heard in early sobriety, and I'm going to get to how this applies to stroke and vestibular recovery as well, because I do really feel like it does for me. Um, and my mind just went blank, but it's gonna come back. This is what it's like when you listen to a stroke podcast. We're gonna get it back. Where did it go? Please hold. I should play some Jeopardy music right now. Celebrating life. Yeah, I don't know what I was gonna say. It's terrible, but we're gonna keep going. Um, early in sobriety, I heard them say uh, it's not I have to, it's I get to. So if there's anything like I have to go to a meeting, no, you get to go to a meeting. And that's because I'm sober and I'm still alive. So I have to go to work. No, you get to go to work because you're sober and you're still alive. So all of the have tos became get tos. And over time, over that period of not drinking, then you start entering into this phase of living. And living for me now is opening my eyes. And no, I don't wake up and there's not butterflies flying around and rainbows and stuff. But I am able to see this like little glimmer of sunshine, that today's another day. That's kind of what my brain thinks when I wake up. When I first have that, I'm waking up and I feel like crap because that's usually how I wake up. I usually feel that hangover feeling, not from drinking, but from my stroke. I feel like this concussion slash hangover feeling when I wake up. So that's there, but there's still this like, what do I get to do today? And that's a trained thought. It's something that you can learn to do. I was talking to my daughter who also visited yesterday. I know I'm very blessed as I don't like to say, but I'm trying to train myself to say blessed. Um, she came to visit and we were talking about that. My mind just went blank again. So sorry. That's because I'm not feeling well still. But we're going to keep going. So, waking up, I get to do these things. And then I move finally into this phase of serenity. And serenity certainly is not ongoing for me. Serenity for me is that moment in time when nothing's wrong, when everything is as it should be. There's nothing bothering me. I feel hopeful. I feel like I'm celebrating life, but I'm also hopeful about what's to come. And that I I got to feel that for the first time. Um, I don't know. I feel like it was maybe a year into sobriety. I'm pretty sure it was like my second year of sobriety where I first felt what serenity is. And that's one of the promises that we will finally know what serenity is. Um, and so that's where I live now. I live in this space where I get to wake up. See, there I said it, and it was natural. I didn't have to work at saying I get to wake up. I get to wake up and I get to chase serenity, and it's so much better than trying to chase a drink or figure out how am I going to hide what I'm doing from everybody that I love and care about. Um, and so how does this apply to my stroke and vestibular disorder, my recovery from living with chronic pain? I think that there's this same idea of white knuckling life. If I don't do the work in stroke and vestibular recovery, I'm white knuckling life again. And the only way that I have learned how to stop white knuckling and and shift over to celebrating life is by communicating with other people, is by being a part of a community, asking for help, and working the steps of my program. I do feel like the steps of my sobriety program can be translated into stroke and vestibular recovery. I have been thinking about actually writing out the steps as they apply to stroke and vestibular recovery. That might be helpful. I've seen some people do that before, and I don't really want to be a copycat, but I don't think I am. It's something that I have just created in my recovery, like my own version of what that looks like to me. And if it can help another person, then I think I should actually write that out. So so today, like this idea of living as a celebration goes back to again that emotional sobriety. And and that is being able to find a calmness or home inside of me amongst all of the chaos, all of the chronic pain, all of the frustrations, the sadness, the fears. I have this home that I can retreat to. It's a place that it's different than serenity because serenity for me is that nothing's wrong. Um, this home that I'm talking about is is not necessarily that nothing's wrong, but it's that everything is okay, even though something is wrong. That everything is not going to be okay. It is okay. Everything is okay, even though it's difficult. Um, that for me is what emotional balance is. It doesn't mean that I'm happy all the time. It means that I feel supported in whatever way that is, whether it is from family and friends, whether it's in my sobriety, stroke, and vestibular networks, or my psychiatrist, like, or my puppies, whatever I need to turn to find, or my higher power. Yeah, I forgot about that. My higher power. See, there's still a lot of work for me to do to be able to rely on my higher power as being at the top of that list. I should be able to list that as one of the first things. So, yeah, that's what I've got. Not to babble anymore. Thanks for listening. And I do have my psychiatrist appointment in 45 minutes. So that's probably going to be a focus of tomorrow's topic. I also have an interview that I did with a gentleman named Ralph, who is the producer of Stroke Warrior Radio, and so I just need to edit that video. I've been procrastinating because it's a little challenging for me to do that kind of thing. I have to wait until my head is feeling a bit better in order to edit the video. And then that's going to be live. And that was a great conversation too. So look forward to that. I have a couple podcast interviews that folks have requested to have me on their show. So that's really super flattering. It's more than flattering. Like I'm honored for anybody to want to talk to me about how I handle my dual recovery. So I'm excited about that. More to come on that. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.